Welcome, everyone. My name is Julie Fannin, and I'm one of the owners of Naturalist Journeys, and very excited to have Peg Abbott, our founder, and Chris Harbard, one of our guides, give you a presentation this evening on Ecuador. Just real quick before we hand it over to Peg and Chris, please remember to mute yourselves. And then as you have questions, just pop them in the chat box on this and we'll go over them at the end. And without further ado, Peg and Chris, thank you.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. It is my pleasure. This is Peg Abbott, and Ecuador has long been one of my absolute favorite destinations. And I've been going there for over 20 years. And each time I get to return, I'm just as excited as the first time. So I wanted to give you an overview of Ecuador and why it's so diverse and why it's so intriguing. We offer a number of different trips, and we're going to focus mainly on our next up, which is November, but we're happy to take questions about any of them. So I like to say Ecuador is a gem, and I really believe for a birder, it is as strong a destination as Costa Rica. It has to be on your bucket list. In terms of the birding opportunity and the birding complexity, it's great to start in Belize or Trinidad, get to know your families, bump up to Costa Rica. And when you hit South America, the bird continent, it's like an order of magnitude of beauty and density of birds. It's really an exciting destination. I think one of the great things about Ecuador, and I heard a talk by someone on Galapagos, and he said, "Aren't you glad the Galapagos Islands belong to a poor nation? Otherwise, they would look like your Cancun or Florida." And I always remembered that. Ecuador is still evolving and coming into its own, and it has a great heritage of pristine natural areas that are replete with birds and wildlife. So the Andes are rugged and they're hard to settle, so there were wild places there. There are some habitats fragmented, but it's like the country is on fire to rewild those that are gone. The conservation message is really loud and clear there. So I call it a recipe for a birder's paradise. And that term gets used a lot. Everybody who wants to sell something to you says, oh, it's a birder's paradise. But if you really drill down on what is a paradise, first of all, you have to get there. And there's great air service to Quito. It's a major capital city, and just about every airline goes in there. So it's not difficult to come and go from Ecuador. Once you arrive, it's so refreshing because it's not the US and it feels different. It moves at a different pace. It's colorful, it's exotic. But for those of us coming from the US, it's very comfortable. They use the US dollar. Their national language is Spanish, but quite a bit of English is spoken, and almost all of the lodges and guides are pretty comfortable with English. So it's easy to get around. And the people are some of the warmest hearted people on earth. And they laugh, they enjoy each other. The team that we have worked with now for close to 20 years, we have some now sons of fathers that we worked with. It is like we were able to join the family there. And we're so proud of them and everything they're doing. The scenery is on a scale of our Alaska. The views of the Andes, some of them are snow-capped. Even the small flights we take to get from one part of the country to another, you're looking down at this rugged topography that's so beautiful. When you get out of the vehicle, there are always birds. And I don't know about you, but that's not so true everywhere at home anymore. But there's a packing of habitat and a packing of birds with a marvelous variety of all plants and other animals. Ecuador has excellent guide training and guide mentoring. So we have a number of local guides we've worked with so long, we would trust them to do anything. And one of them, Andrea Molina, actually travels with us and guides for us in other countries in addition to Ecuador. There's also good modern field guides. There's the Merlin app and other apps to help you with calls and songs. And I wanted to say that people are asking us at times about, do we feel secure? Do we feel safe? Ecuador has some transitions going on. They protest their government. And as I said, I've gone there over 20 years. I have never felt afraid in Ecuador. I'm careful when I'm in Quito. I watch my purse and things you do in any big city. But when we're out in nature, our bus drivers are in radio contact with each other and their office 24/7. They know when things are going on. When there were protests on the road, they would tell us, we're going to protest at 8 o'clock. So we could leave the lodge early and get to the airport without any problems or delays. So we never take safety lightly. It is one of our top, probably our very top priority for everyone involved. But we feel very comfortable because we have a strong local network. We're in rural areas, and some areas that have strife are not the areas that we visit. So we do feel very safe in our travels in Ecuador. And the rewards once we get there are incredible. They have almost 1,700 species of birds. They're fifth in the world, and yet they're a tiny nation. There's 132 species of hummingbirds, and regularly on all of our trips, we see 50 to 60 species. It's overwhelming. It's so much fun. And they have 140 species of tanagers. Half of the day-glow beautiful tanagers of the world are in Ecuador. So those really charismatic species. Like I said, we've been going for over 20 years. We've had multiple groups in multiple parts of the country. And every time people are happy with their trip and they come back eager to see the other portion of Ecuador they didn't see on the first one. We offer 5 different trips. We've got one remaining this year. We still have space on it, and November is an excellent time of year for the way the rains fall across the divide. In 2027, on their northern route, we have 2 different themes, one for hummingbirds and more, and one for birds and mammals, slightly different itineraries. We know that everyone doesn't have 2 weeks, so we have a nice short trip that highlights the Chocó region, which is highly diverse. We have the southern route, which is what we're featuring in this Zoom, our November trip. And we actually have 2 Galapagos next year because Andrea Molina will be guiding a women's only for us in March. And then we have our regular trip in November. I mapped this out because I thought it was easier for you to see that a lot of the nature reserves cluster. This is a map of the Hokotoco Foundation. It's named for a bird, and you're going to soon see a picture of that bird. It was discovered very recently, and its discovery gave rise to a host of conservation effort, but they went right for the prime areas to secure private reserves. And you'll see how they fall out into a northern group and a southern group. And these just show the reserves. In addition, there are national parks, but our trips correspond to a northern route and a southern route. And on both, we cross the Andes. So one of the great things about going, I love group travel. I've done it for a lot of years. You see more with a group because you have more eyes looking. But what we like to contribute is the fact that you can focus on the birds and your vacation. And we take care of the plans and the little tweaks of this, that, and the other thing. You can expect good food and hospitality, great guides. And like I said, the bird craze in Ecuador, you'll see it in the villages. When you come into a village, there are bird signs. It's almost like everybody's gotten the buzz, and it makes it fun. I have to say, when I think Ecuador, I think of this soup. It's one of my very favorite. This is a sancocho. It's a potato with avocado and spices and a rich, luscious chicken broth. It's a delicious soup. I think they are varied in food because they have so many different influences. So when you're near the coast, you get a lot of fresh seafood and ceviche. And when you're in the Andes, you get a lot of potato dishes, cassava dishes, and they really excel at soups and stews. And they add flavors we wouldn't normally add, like some of those tropical fruits into the dishes. They like corn and they use the hominy in dishes. So you can expect not to lose any weight on a Naturalist Journeys tour. I think there's probably some of you out there laughing because you know what I mean. Okay, Chris.
Okay. So for me, what I think is amazing about Ecuador, as Peg has said, it's a small country. And here is a map that you can see. The red color is the outline for Ecuador, and the purple color is the outline for the state of Arizona in the US. And you can see that Ecuador is actually smaller than Arizona. And yet it has 1,680 bird species. We've only got 570 that have been seen in Arizona. And I'm sure they're adding more to the Ecuador list at a greater rate than we are to the Arizona list. So although some of the roads might be tricky, travel is pretty good across Ecuador. And it's much like traveling from the north to the south of Arizona. You can do it quite easily. So exploring, for example, the southern part of the country, as we will be doing in November, gives you an opportunity to move around that area and visit lots and lots of different habitats. Because as you move around, the elevation changes, the vegetation changes, and the birds and other wildlife change. So it's really amazing, to my mind, that such a small country can cram in so many species. And it's no wonder you're just tripping over them wherever you go. So there's no doubt you will be utterly bedazzled by the brilliant hummingbirds on any trip to Ecuador. A group like this gathering around a feeder, or maybe the striking long-tailed sylph, which is striking, or the flashy white-necked Jacobins. This is quite a common bird at feeders, with its beautiful blue and green iridescent metallic plumage, that little white neck. But for me, when it spreads open that white tail and flashes it, it's wonderful. Then you have the tiny green thorntail with its lovely little white band across the lower back, and that little spiky tail, which gives it its name, and its little white moustache. Very tiny, tiny hummingbird. But from there, you can also go to the totally stunning Ecuadorian hill star. Oh my God, look at that. Look at that incredible purple head. And contrasting with that fabulous little white belly and that dark black line across the throat. Absolutely stunning. But one of the iconic species of the region is the much sought after Andean cock of the rock. I mean, just look at this. This is a male with its incredible orange, red, and black plumage, that crest, which actually extends to in front of the beak. It's an amazing little crest it has. And they have a fabulous display, sitting on the branches and bowing down. Often groups of these lovely, brilliantly colored males will gather to display to the browner, somewhat drabber, but equally interesting looking females. But even common birds can look good. Here's a cheeky banana quit, and you will find in many of the lodges, they'll come and join you at the breakfast table looking for scraps. But they're delightful little birds, beautiful white eye stripe along the black head, grey throat, and that delightful bright yellow breast. The bill slightly curved downwards, very pointed, just cheeky little birds that are always a delight to see, often coming into the hummingbird feeders and tanager fruit feeders as well to get their fill. But as we travel round, we get the opportunity to see a wide range of birds. One of my favorites is the torrent duck, which is found on the rushing Andean mountain streams. From Venezuela all the way down to southern Chile, you can encounter them. And I think these must be one of the best looking ducks ever. The males have this striking black and white striped head with a bright orange beak. The females, maybe even more so, they're bright orange and gray. And the sight of these somewhat slim ducks being able to swim through the rushing mountain streams is absolutely breathtaking. But it's not just birds in the daytime. We're able to go out at night when we're at some of the lodges. And if we're lucky, we get to see something like this large black and white owl. You're very lucky, you might hear it, might even see it at one of the lodges. And we always try whenever there are nocturnal birds around to give people a chance to see them, from owls to potus to nightjars. There's another bird. It's the rather improbably named superciliarid hemispingus. Quite a mouthful for a small bird. It's a tanager, but it's quite interesting. It's found in the montane forests from Venezuela to Bolivia, and it has a very patchy, broken distribution. There are kind of pockets of it in different areas and through different countries. And a lot of these have a different subspecies, which might be slightly different plumage. This one has a bright yellow breast. There's one with enormous white breast. They all have the supercilium, though, which gives them their name. And it may well be that these separate subspecies may one day be split into individual full species. So it's well worth trying to see them wherever you go, because you might just see a different one in a different place. And then lastly, one lovely bird here, the giant conebill. Now, to my eye, coming from the UK as I do, this looks strangely like a nuthatch, a European nuthatch. It's bluish grey on the back, it's orangey underneath. In fact, that's just like the nuthatch, but it's not related at all. Again, it's a type of tanager. But it feeds like a nuthatch. This is the interesting thing. It's mainly found from Peru down to Bolivia, with a separate population in the Andes of Ecuador. And there it inhabits the high elevation evergreen polylepis forest. And you can see on the branch there that the bark of this tree is very scaly and flaky. And this conebill clambers along up the trunks, along the branches, and pecks off little flakes of bark to look for insects underneath. So an interesting bird that's evolved to look rather like a completely different species, thousands of miles away in a different continent.
So truly, from birds to bugs, Ecuador ranks very high on a global scale. So quite a number of years ago, there was an effort by conservation organizations like World Wildlife Fund, and then at the government level with the UN Environment Program, to list the mega diverse countries, figuring that if we invest in conservation there, we'll get our biggest bang for our buck. And Ecuador is recognized as one of those, which again is a very small nation, the size of Arizona. It's pretty incredible. But more than that, because of its small size, if you take the number of species, and these are all taxa, not just birds, but it also holds true for only birds, Ecuador is the #1 per density, per square mile or square kilometer. More species are packed into that area than anywhere else in the world. Here's some stats, and I want to do a nod to my good friend Lynn Tenefos, who helped me with this presentation and helped me gather statistics. We had a lot of fun. We had a little frustration sometimes with PowerPoint, but we pulled together some of these stats and charts so you can take a look. So for bird species density, first globally, and plant species. And I'll go on to explain sort of why it's so diverse, but these are impressive notes for why choose this as a travel destination. The plants are also incredibly beautiful. And I don't know about you, but sometimes it's hard to keep your focus on birding. When you're walking along a road and right beside you at eye level is one showy bloom after another. So I would say the flora of Ecuador is one of the big bonuses to travel there. It's really incredible, from orchids to other groups. And there's really no season of the year without blooms, but November is a particularly good time for the blooming. And when you have blooms, you have butterflies. And one could do a trip just to focus on the butterflies of Ecuador. They're just as varied as the birds. And particularly when it's sunny, Ecuador is rainy at times. It's part of why it's so green and lush. When the sun comes out, it's like a winged explosion. There are so many butterflies. It's really great. There's also a lot of mammals. There's agoutis, and we have spectacled bear, various primates. The mammal viewing is excellent as well, but particularly with the primates. Again, it's a small country. If anyone's here not from the US, I wanted to overlay it with another country about the same size and area, which is Italy, to compare to sort of its location. And here are 3 reasons to think about. It's probably more complex than this, but one is its equatorial location. The highest level of diversity is always found along the equator in the band around the Earth, partly because it has very even growing conditions throughout the year, and also the way the weather patterns flow. So Ecuador is like an amazing greenhouse that never has the mist system go off. It's got lots of moisture, lots of sun. And when you place upon that the elevation gradient of the Andes, which is tens of thousands of feet, it gives you an incredible variety from east, where you would start in the Amazon region, you climb up the east slope of the Andes, and every 1,000 feet, you change the temperature and the amount of water, topping off at a treeless environment called the páramo, dropping all the way down to the Pacific where you have mangroves. So the Andes and the elevation is probably the greatest impact on that high density and species packing. When you get down in the lowlands of the West, the rainfall pattern and the current, the Humboldt current that comes up that coast, means that there's a gradient of habitat in the Southwest. It's fairly arid and dry coming up from Peru. And then it gets wetter and wetter as you go to the north. This is a picture of generally, you can look at the flat and you can see if you had a whole continent going from tropical grassland over to the right to icy environments, that's the amount of space. In a country like Ecuador, you change that and you put all that variety on a vertical axis. And that's how you get that species packing in such a small area. They're literally stacked biotic communities, one right after the other. So when we tell you today we're going to drive up and over the Andes, you're going to hit 7 or 8 bands of different kinds of habitat. Within that habitat, there are 2 that we spend a lot of time in that I think you will remember forever. One is the cloud forest. And the cloud forest is kind of a misty, mysterious realm where every tree is festooned with epiphytes, orchids, bromeliads, and you hear all these voices and sounds coming from it. It's quite an amazing habitat. So you have sort of montane forests. It grades into the area where mist is always bathing the plants, and that's some of the highest biodiversity on Earth. Then you climb out of it to what we would call the tundra. They call it the páramo, and their land above the trees is more of a squishy, spongy wonderland where you literally sink in like a trampoline as you try to walk around. Lots of unusual plants. And just so you know, you don't have to go to the top to see it all. The highest diversity is actually in that mid elevation in that cloud forest area. And that's where quite a few of our lodges are. This is that east to west map to show you the pinks are lowlands, the blues and purples are highlands and cloud forest. So you can see you go from low on the Pacific side, mangroves. Down in the west, southwest, it's arid. And then you get to forest, up into temperate forest. The green is all those snow-capped peaks and páramo areas, and then drop down the other side. And Ecuador has a big section of the Amazon watershed. The Amazon has 17 major tributaries, and several come from the mountains in Ecuador. So the west side is part of a biodiversity hotspot that tours access in Peru all the way up to Panama. And it changes from dry to wet as you go north. But that west side we will encounter as we go to Buenaventura, and we have 3 nights at that location. And from there, we go to different reserves, some in the wet forest and some in the dry. Then when we go up and over the top, this is the kind of landscape you see. And this is spongy when you walk on it. It's not crunkly or dry. It's very wet habitat with a lot of shrubs and a lot of birds. And then we drop down into very lush, thick forests. And that's a different habitat type. The Cordillera Real is just a fancy name for the east slope of the Andes. And we are encountering that at the 4 lodges, the second part of our tour. So, Chris, do you want to talk a little bit about that east-west effect on the birds?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks, Peg. So here we have a map of the Guayaquil woodpecker, a species which spreads down from Colombia right the way down into Peru. So it stretches down along the western side of Ecuador. And you can see there's quite a concentration of it in coastal regions and also inland a little bit, slightly higher areas, stretching down right to the very southern border. But it doesn't cut across the Andes. There's nothing to the east at all. It's very much a western species. Found in the forest areas, obviously, because this is what woodpeckers like. So if we move on next, we have the long-wattled umbrella bird. Now this, you can see, has a much more patchy distribution. There are some up in the far north, up just getting up into Colombia, and some in the far south of Ecuador, but mostly they're in little pockets, if you like, little pockets of habitat, and they're very much an endangered species. They're threatened by habitat loss, and it's one which I will talk more about when we get on to looking at the various lodges that we're staying at. But it's very much in contrast with the next species, which is the Amazonian umbrella bird. And here you can see this has the eastern distribution. And in fact, it's found much more widely across into Colombia, across a wide area of Peru as well, stretching, I think, into Brazil. And maybe, I'm not sure, it might just reach Bolivia. But there's a good population there in Ecuador, particularly in the north. And we hope that we will be seeing it in the southern part of its range. So we will see both the western species, the long-wattled, and the eastern species, the Amazonian. That'll be 2 out of the world's 3 umbrella birds. Not bad at all. Next, we have the Peruvian pygmy owl, a western species. And again, this is one you find right down into the very lowlands of Ecuador. Along the coast, you can get it, but it spreads inland as well, but it doesn't go really up to any particular height. It's just going into the foothills of the Andes on the west there. So it's very much like lowland forests, like a lot of the pygmy owls do. And I hope that we have a chance to see one of these lovely little tiny little owls. Then we have on the east side now, we have the coppery-chested jacamar. The jacamars are a lovely species. They're insectivorous species. They will fly out and catch large insects. And this one You don't find it in the west at all. You only find this across on the east side of the Andes, as you can see, very much confined to that. Again, a species which is largely found in Ecuador, but just about gets into Peru and also spreads a little bit up into Colombia as well, but very much an Ecuador speciality. The beautiful metallic green, coppery chested jacama. And here are the little flycatcher, the foothill elenia. And this one again is confined to the east side, but again, look at that distribution. It's really restricted, small pockets of it coming down that east side of the Andes, not getting anywhere into the lower Amazonian forest, and not even making it over onto the west side, just confined to little pockets where we might be lucky and just encounter one of them. A lovely tiny little flycatcher, this beautiful bright green plumage and grayish on the head. Lovely birds, the Elenias. And one last species here, a very much range restricted species. I think you can just make out at the very northern edge of the range there. That's in the southern edge of Ecuador. It does stretch down into Peru as well. But what a fabulous bird. I love cotingas, and this particular one, I think chestnut crested really doesn't say it. I mean, it's this brilliant, vivid orange color with that glaring red eye. Boy, what a lovely bird to see that wood. And we'll be looking for that. Very range restricted. You might get lucky.
Okay, we'll switch gears here. Hopefully we've given you some background. And one of the nice things about the way we approach our tours is your guides will be ready to give you that backstory. So as you're seeing these species, hopefully you're learning a lot about the geography of the country and about that particular bird and its life history and behavior. So we're going to switch gears and do a little travelogue here. If I did a map of the entire route, you can see how we actually start in Quito, but fly to Guayaquil up in that upper left. And then we make a drive down to Buenaventura, which is on the west side of the Andes. We do a big crossover over to Copalinga in that lower right corner with the purple square. We backtrack a bit and hop down to Casa Simpson, and then eventually come back through Loja and continue north. So I'm going to do each section in a little more detail. We'll move through this fairly quickly, but I wanted to give you the overall picture. When you get to Quito, Quito has recently renovated the airport. It's out in the suburb of Puembo, so you're not in the city proper, but it's a really easy, user-friendly airport. And it's a short drive over to a hotel. And this is one of my favorite hotels. There are chain hotels right at the airport we can use that are handy if you're just coming and going. But this one is over a century. It's a hacienda. The rooms are more modern, but the old part of the building where you have your dinner is lined with Ecuadorian art. Your dishes are antiques. It's just got a great feel. You know immediately that you have come to Ecuador, and it's a welcoming, lovely small hotel, and it's got big trees. So that means
Yes, some great birds. And one of them, you don't get much greater than this particular thrush. In my eye, it looks very much like a European blackbird, but it's more the size of a jay. Very large with a bright orange bill, this fabulous orange circle around the eye, orange skin around the eye, and bright orange legs. So a very large thrush, a relative, of course, of the American robin, but looking this dark, almost black, slaty gray color. I'm looking forward very much to seeing great thrushes in their element. And then we come to the scrub tanager. When you think of tanagers, you often think of forests and birds after fruit, of little mixed flocks flying through the canopy. This one's different. This is a scrub tanager. This likes more bushy, scrubby habitat. And while it's not brilliantly colored, it does share a lot of the colors, that lovely turquoise blue color on the wings and tail, and some orange on the crown. So it's not as vivid as some, but I still think a very, very attractive little bird. And then we have, of course, the hummingbird. Everywhere you go in Ecuador, there are hummingbirds. And this one is the Western emerald. So many hummingbirds are named after gemstones, and this one does it exactly right. It looks beautifully emerald colored. It's quite a small hummingbird, very, very beautiful, and one which I think it does occasionally come to feed us.
So we take off from in the morning on a flight, and from that flight, you hopefully will have clear skies and you can look down on snow-capped peaks of the Andes. And you fly over the Andes and land down in the lowlands in an area of mangroves and coastal vegetation. And we start our drive, which if we didn't stop would be 3.5 hours. But we pretty much make a day of it because along the way are 2 reserves we like to stop at. One is for water birds, and we see roseate spoonbills and maybe horned screamers, lots of good water birds. Typically, one of those first eBird lists is 50 species or more. And then we also stop in a little patch of forest that has some of the drier, arid vegetation. So we do that. We have lunch on the way, and it's a really good seafood restaurant. And then we end up at the Buenaventura Reserve. It was established in the late 90s, and it's about 6,500 acres. And it was established to protect the long-wattled umbrella bird and a species of parakeet found in the upper reaches of the reserve. But Buenaventura is the reserve, and the lodge is a community-run, simple lodge of local construction. So lots of nice wood, artwork, really good food. This is not a place where they're going to have a spa and you sign up for massages. All your soothing energy comes from nature, and you are literally immersed in it. They're individual little casitas with private bath, very, very comfortable place. Your foods have a lot of tropical fruits. Breakfast is just ideal. We usually bird first and come back in, and they have very good coffee in Ecuador. This is just to show you what a room looks like so you can get an idea. Lots of lovely wooden floors, simple furnishings. It's not fancy, but it's just perfect for birders.
And when you step outside of the lodge, you're immediately surrounded by an incredible range of wildlife, from birds like this white-whiskered puffbird to amazing butterflies and colorful plants and noises as well. You'll hear noises from mammals, you'll hear noises from the birds all around you. It's just wonderful stepping out from the comfort of your lodge into this just incredible wealth of wildlife. And of course, lots and lots of hummingbirds. There are feeders up at the lodge itself. Some of those photos you saw earlier were taken at the Buenaventura lodge of hummingbirds at the feeders. And there's some quite special ones there. The emerald-bellied wood nymph, now often regarded as a subspecies of the crowned wood nymph, it is threatened in its small Ecuadorian range. And a lot of the species that we might be encountering, there's often not a lot of information known about them. They know what they are, at least they think they do. They know something about where they are, but there's still work being done, a lot of taxonomic work on what are species, what are subspecies, and still a lot of discoveries to be made. So this one here, the crowned wood nymph, is lumped with other similar species, but may well be renamed again one day the emerald-bellied wood nymph, which would be a tiny population there down in southern Ecuador. Beautiful bird, like all the hummingbirds are, all the wonderful colors. Here's another interesting one, the white-vented plumelet. I was watching these in Panama a couple of months ago. Lovely, beautiful birds. You can't quite see the white vent. It is brilliant white at the very base of the undertail. But lovely, lovely hummingbirds. And this one is a disjunct population. It's found in northern Peru, and southern Ecuador, but the main population is in Colombia and into Panama, and I think Venezuela as well. So this is a disjunct population, which is sometimes called the Ecuadorian plumelet. And again, one day it might be decided that the intermediate subspecies warrants becoming a full species itself. But as with all hummingbirds, it doesn't matter what species they are, they're just a delight to watch. Okay, we mentioned the Guayaquil woodpecker earlier because of its western distribution throughout Ecuador. It's a large woodpecker. It's a close relative of the ivory-billed woodpecker. It's found mainly in the lowland forests of the west, doesn't get up high into the Andes at all. But you can see it has this beautiful bright red head. And on the back, there is like a white V that stretches down onto its black back, very distinctive and unmistakable. Also unmistakable is the incredibly powerful drumming noise. You can't ignore one if it's around. It's hammering away on the trees, telling you that it's there. And Peg mentioned the El Oro parakeet. This is very much an endemic species. It is pretty well found only on the Buenaventura Reserve. Its population is very small, and yeah, it feeds around the reserve. It does go out from the reserve to feed, but it comes back in again. And quite a few of them are actually breeding in nest boxes, which they have on the reserve. Interestingly, it's a cooperative breeder. So a pair may have up to 6 helpers to help them find food and look after the young. And those helpers will gain experience and then start to breed themselves when they're fully mature. The delightful little El Oro parakeet. And then this has to be, I think, my favorite on the reserve because this is quite a restrictive range species. As we showed you earlier, it's in little pockets through Ecuador. And this is one of the best places to see this species. So you can literally walk out from the lodge down a little muddy trail, and if you're lucky, there will be a long-wattled umbrella bird staring down at you like this one. And they're amazing. The males have this long wattle. It's expandable. It's part of their display. They expand that wattle, which allows them to make a loud hooting call. And when they want to travel and fly around, obviously it might get in the way a bit. They can compact it again and then just fly off. It's called the umbrella bird because it has this kind of hood of feathers on the head, looking like a little bit of an umbrella. Quite useful, I think, to have in rainforest. Then we come to a flycatcher. There's lots and lots of flycatchers around. This little one is the Ocraceus Attila. Now, I love the name Attila because these are tyrant flycatchers. And of course, Attila the Hun was very much a tyrant. So I like the idea that the taxonomists had their bit of fun in naming this after one of the world's great tyrants, the Attila. Ocraceus, yes, it's a beautiful cinnamon and yellow color, has quite a stout beak with a little hook on the tip, with a nice whistling song. And also it often pumps its tail up and down, wags it up and down, sitting on the branch. Very distinctive little bird, the Ocraceus Attila. And here's a delightful name for what is a great bird. Hummingbirds are not the only species which are named after precious stones. And this beautiful Andean tanager's name is delightfully descriptive. Its bright blue-green body feathers are not simply spotted across its darker black body, they're sparklingly decorated across it. So you have to call it something like the beryl-spangled tanager. What a name, what a bird.
Okay, so we always have a hard time leaving there. There's so much to see at Buenaventura. The next day is our longest travel day because it's up and over the Andes, but it's probably one of the most spectacular drives you'll make in a lifetime. You go through the lovely Catamayo Valley, the town of Loja. We have lunch along the way, but we also stop at several key areas for birding. And we have a big wish list along the way. And what's delightful is to go with a local guide who drives you right up to some place and says, we'll get out here and we're looking for, and there's the bird. So it's really a well orchestrated day, and the scenery's fabulous, as is the birding. And our destination is Copalinga. Copalinga was a lodge I went to shortly after they opened. It was opened by a Belgian couple in 1999. And it is right on the edge of Podocarpus National Park, which is a very large national park that varies in elevation. And it's on the lowland side, but the birding from the lodge is fantastic. And here again, it's not fancy, but it's got a lot of atmosphere. It's got a fun little bar, dining area, individual cabins with private bath. And like I said, it's 5 minutes away to get to some of the trails. It would be like staying right on the edge of Yellowstone. Just a great location. And we can bird right on the grounds of the lodge itself. There's sections that are riverine forest that's very thick. And then they also have a very long hedgerow of vervain that attracts hummingbirds.
So here you are, looking out from one of the blinds at the lodge, giving you an opportunity to see the fabulous species. You just step outside and there's something like that Inca jay. You can tell it's a jay because it has blue on it. Most jays have some blue on them somewhere, but they're not just blue jays like we have in the United States. This is a blue, green, yellow, white, and goodness knows what other colored jay. Absolutely gorgeous. And there on the right is a violet-fronted brilliant. Never mind the violet front. What about that vivid green on the throat and all the other colors? But you have to pick out one of them when you're making up a name for a hummingbird. So, lots of great birds found within the park. And one very special one is the gray tinamou. Anyone who's traveled into Central and South America will know that tinamous, they don't exist. You hear them, you never see them. They're impossible to see. They're often active nocturnally, and sometimes you might get a shadow or a movement or something. And the great tinamou is just like this. It's in fact the largest of all the tinamous, and it typically hides away in the deep forest. But at Copalinga Lodge, they found a way to entice them out. They use corn. They put out corn. And they have a blind there, and they will put the corn out. And if you want to watch them or photograph them, this is the best place in the world to do it. Because you can get photographs like this of the very otherwise shy and very secretive gray tinamou. So a wonderful place to go to look for that. Then we have a tiny hummingbird, the little wood star. It's what's called one of the bee hummingbirds. It's so small it almost looks like an insect. It's found mostly in Ecuador, so it's really the only country you can come to reliably see it. The male has a deeply forked, spiky tail, as you can see on this image here. It has a delightful red gorget surrounded by a kind of buffy neck patch, which extends up to join two eye stripes on either side. So the whole throat patch there is surrounded by that buffy white color. A beautifully beautiful hummingbird. Again, one which sometimes, if you're lucky, comes to feed us. Then we have the coppery-chested jacamar. I mentioned this earlier, showing you its distribution, but this shows you it in its full glory. This fabulous colored bird with the green and blue, and then that deep, deep orangey, coppery color on the whole belly and on the tail as well. Beautiful looking bird. Quite a long beak that they have. They can sit quite silently in the shadows under the trees and it can be difficult to see. But when they flutter out to grab a passing insect, then which they hawk for them, then they become more obvious. But beautifully beautiful birds, the jacamars, long-tailed, long beak, looking a bit like hummingbirds, but they're not at all related to them. Then we have the Amazonian umbrella bird. This one here has a very small little wattle on the breast. They also have them, just like the long-wattled one, but it's a much smaller affair. This, I suspect, is an immature bird. It doesn't have a full crest yet. Normally, that would extend over its forehead, and the wattle would be longer. But it's a species which I said or showed on the maps earlier, you only found on the eastern side of the Andes and down into the Amazon, into Peru, where I've seen them. So beautiful Amazonian one bird, umbrella bird, one of one of the three species, and let's hope we will see two of them on this trip. And how about this? Tanagers, we know about tanagers. In the US, we have some very nice ones, like scarlet tanager and summer tanager, but nothing quite as colorful as the tanagers you get in Central and South America. And this one here, the orange-eared tanager, it's just gorgeous. It's often found in mixed flocks in the tree canopy. So that's always what we're looking for. And out of the canopy behind the leaves may hop something like this with beautiful green and turquoise and then a dark throat. And on either side of that throat on the cheek is this bright, bright orange patch. One of the most dazzling of the tanagers. And you can find this at Copperlinga Lodge as well, just outside of where you're staying. So perfect to look for those. And another very colorful bird, the blue-naped chlorophonia. Related to the euphonias, it's quite a tiny little roundish bird with a small beak. But it has a beautiful green head and back, bright yellow underparts. In Ecuador, it's blue on the back and the rump as well, and right up to the nape. Elsewhere, you get a variety which is greener on the back. But we have this brilliantly colored one. The male has a yellow forehead, has a blue patch or ring around the eye. And like most of the chlorophonias and euphonias, it's a fruit eater and particularly likes mistletoe berries. So if you find clumps of mistletoe hanging down, that's where you start looking for the blue-naped chlorophonia.
Okay, so the next move we make, and I'm going to speed up a little bit as I'm watching our time, we leave Copperlinga Lodge and we only have about 90 kilometers to go to get up to a different environment. So Potacopis National Park is quite large, spectacular array of habitats and birds established in 1982. And it's over 500 square miles inside. So Copperlinga is on one side. It's in that upper right-hand edge. And today we're going to drive through the national park and up to the Tapachalaca Reserve over on the lower left part. So that's our route for going between two reserves of the very important conservation group called the Hokotoco Foundation. Again, we are going to stay in a community-built lodge that benefits conservation. This is a big conservation tour that benefits all these reserves as we go through our stays. And it's a two-story lodge. It's rustic, but very comfortable, great food. The location is absolutely primo. And it's, again, got private bathrooms. So all your comforts are taken care of. They're just not lavish. This is an example of the rooms that they have. Again, wood floors, wood furnishings. This one would have been one with multiple beds. Some have queen beds. You can sit out on your patio and look into the forest, and you can see it's a very different forest type. You'll probably be bundled up by the fire in the evening. You'll need a fleece here. It's in the Andes and it's cool. These are the public areas. You can see that nice wood burning stove to keep you toasty. And breakfast is served in the morning, the same area. And what an array of wildlife you'll find here. These are a couple of just scenics with the barred fruit eater female. We'll show the male coming up. I'll pass it to you, Chris.
Yep, sorry, we were on the previous image there. Yeah, here you've got a lovely evocative view of the cloud forest with a couple of black vultures sitting up there in front of them. And then the barred fruit eater, delightful little bird with the orange beak and orange feet. And we'll, I think, see a picture of a male later on. So lots of beautiful birds here within the reserve. And another scenic shot, I think, here. With, again, showing the Andes in the distance. And there is, oh, sorry, a couple of other of the bird species. But it's not just birds there because of the cloud forest, which attracts all these wonderful flower peckers and the like. The cloud forest is full of dense packed species. It's recognized as a hotspot for botanical diversity. So you have tremendous numbers of orchids, of euphorbias and other amazing plants, very rich, loving this humid and very wet environment that they're found in. So the Chapicholacca Reserve, there's a wide range of species here. There's the male barred fruit eater there with his lovely blue head and beautiful speckled barring on the belly, wonderful. There's the bearded guan sitting on the tree there. We'll come to him in a minute. The chestnut-naped antpitter, one of many antpitters. That's the top bird on the right. And at the bottom there, the hokotoko antpitter, which I'll tell you about in a second. So a nice range of species. So here is the bearded guan. And it's a kind of a chicken-like species. As you can see, it's got quite a long tail. On the throat, it has that red patch of skin. It's a dark sort of chocolate brown color with silvery streaks on the head and neck. And they're found up in the canopy. You'll find them up in trees, but they'll come down to the ground as well. And it's a bird that you can frequently see along the forest trails around Casa Simpson, where we'll be staying. Then hummingbirds, of course, there are feeders out and flowers for the hummingbirds. The amethyst-throated sun angel. Goodness, what a name. This is found from southern Ecuador south to Bolivia. The male has a beautiful purple throat, and both sexes have that white breastband, very obvious. In Ecuador, the females can have a little patch of purple on the throat, which is otherwise an orange buff color. Not a large hummingbird, but a beautiful one to see. Now here's a fabulous bird, the gray-breasted mountain toucan. There are 4 mountain toucans of the world, and 3 of them are found in Ecuador, but this, I think, is arguably the most attractive of them all. Look at that multicolored beak, almost a rainbow on its beak. The back is brown, the rump is yellow, the vent is red, the tip of the tail is orange, and it has a beautifully blue-gray breast to it. What a fantastic bird, and yeah, we hope we'll see plenty of those again on the reserve. The elegant crescent chest. Now here's another species. It's a unique family. And there are many interesting families of birds found across South America. This is one of the more unique ones. There's only 4 species, and 2 of them are found in Ecuador, and 1 of them can be seen on the reserve, but it is a very secretive species. So if you do see this beautifully patterned bird, it would definitely be a red letter day. We'll be on the lookout for the elegant crescent chest. And here is the star of the show, the hokotoko antpitter. This bird was first described in 1997. Very recently found, and yet look at it, it's very obvious looking bird with the chestnut wings and that white cheek patch and almost black head and grayish colored on it. Like all antpitters, it has virtually no tail and has these long legs, so it looks quite strange in its structure. And there are several antpitters on the reserve we could see, but this is the one we really want to see. It's endangered with a population of about 800 birds. And I think you can see from the map of it, if we could switch to that, Peg. Yeah, the map of it there, that is the world range of the hokotoko antpitter. And it's just mainly around, as you can see, that large dark colored square is where the reserve is, where we'll be staying. There are little pockets of it elsewhere. Only about 800 birds. And it's the discovery of this bird which prompted the foundation of the Chapicholacca Reserve and has boosted conservation all over Ecuador. And yes, you can buy a t-shirt with the bird on it. Okay, the orange-banded flycatcher, lots and lots of tyrant flycatchers found in the Americas. This is rather a charming little one. The orange bands on the wing there that you can see. It's range restricted. It's only found in southern Ecuador and northern Peru. It's otherwise a dark brown color. Some have dark eyes, some have little pale eyes. And if you could see within its crown feathers, there is actually a little yellowy orange patch of feathers hidden inside the crown, which it sometimes displays. And here's one, a name that I really love. I love mountain tanagers, but this is the lachrymose mountain tanager. Mountain tanagers are found all along the Andes, from Venezuela to Bolivia, and this species stretches along that range. It has beautiful orange-yellow underparts, a bluish black and head, and has this distinctive teardrop-like yellow patch under the eye. It's its name. And again, it has lots and lots of subspecies. There are several in Colombia, there are several down into Peru and in Ecuador as well. And some of these may well become full species in years to come.
Okay, so after just an immersion in pristine nature by Podocarpus National Park on two sides, it's time to start heading north, and we're heading to the town of Loja. And both Loja and Cuenca are historic cities of Ecuador with a lot of atmosphere. So we plan to get there with time to see the local botanic gardens and just give you a little city time. So here you have a modern hotel with all the amenities, time to freshen up for the next wild part of your trip. And we'll take in a little bit of the cultural side of Loja in the afternoon and evening. This is an example of one of the rooms. So leaving Loja, we continue north and we're heading toward Cuenca, which is one of Ecuador's most important and historic cities. And we take a diversion there to go into Dos Chorrillos National Park, into Cajas National Park to Dos Chorrillos Lodge. And this is the most high-end lodge we stay at. It's absolutely gorgeous. The rooms are spacious. The dining is, it's hard to beat. This is a typical meal there where they cook in the clay pots and they have, I can see those yuca pan bread, so many good things and lots of fresh ingredients. And this is the scenery you're in. So just a whole total change. Rushing streams have torrent ducks, and the páramo you can actually get out and walk in. You are at higher elevations. Some of our clients take doxycycline just to make sure they don't have any issues with altitude sickness, but we keep things at a birder's pace so it's comfortable. And it's one of Ecuador's really incredible national parks with a lot of scenery and variety of birds. It's a nature immersion, lots of unique vegetation, and some specialty birds. I'll turn it over to Chris.
Okay. I'm not seeing any pictures, Peg.
Okay. Maybe there's a delay there. So this is just a montage. That's a dining area, a scenic, one of the gorgeous trogons associated with the mountains, and Andean tit spine-tail. And now we're going to go to the violet-throated metal-tail, Chris.
Okay, so I'm afraid I can't see it at the moment, but yeah, this is an endemic species to southern Ecuador. It's restricted to the high Andes, and it's endangered. It's a dark olive green color, not brightly colored like many other hummingbirds, but it does have a bright violet purple throat, the blue and green tail, only known from a handful of locations, but the best place to see it is in the Cajas National Park, where we'll be visiting. And there are other species which we'll see because we're up high where there are wet areas. Again, I'm afraid, there we go, like the Andean teal, a small all-brown duck with a dark beak. But of particular interest is the Ecuadorian hill star. This gorgeous hummingbird has a bright purple head, green back, and white underparts. It's almost endemic to Ecuador. and is found in the high altitude grasslands of the Andes, feeding on its favorite flowers from the Chukiraga shrub. It has large feet which allow it to grab hold of the shrub and cling there while it feeds, rather than hovering like other hummingbirds. And then you have a gull that you can find up in these high areas, the only gull in the Andes, the Andean gull. When it's not breeding, it's down by the coast, but we should still see some birds up there in their breeding habitat. Beautiful black-hooded Andean gull. And lots of other small birds. This one's rather nice. The Cyclodes you find in wetland areas, they're all down different Cyclodes species down the coast of South America. This one gets up into the high wetland areas of the Andes, the chestnut-winged Cyclodes with its buffy orange wing bar in flight. They run and hop and beautiful, delightful, and often quite approachable bird.
And our last little drive is just back to the historic city of Cuenca. We have had clients add some personal time in this city afterwards and take a later flight back to Quito, which we could help you with. But it's just a half an hour away to being in the city. And as I said, it's very colorful, and you look back toward the mountains that you've been immersed in. So this is the end point of our journey, allowing you some extra time on your own if you enjoy the cities and their ambiance and culture. We'll enjoy it with our final dinner and then do a flight up to Quito to continue on for flights out. One of the nice things about the trip is you have several places along the way. You've had 3-night stays, so it's a good pace. And we hope that you'll open your mind to the incredible riches of Ecuador. I think one of the funnest things is that the country has embraced conservation and birding to the degree it has. And where some countries you go, there you feel it at a lodge. In Ecuador, you feel it in the country. It's really quite extraordinary.
And yes, thank you all of you for attending this talk. If you want to find more about the wildlife, I can't recommend too highly this book, a photographic guide published by Princeton University Press called The Wildlife of Ecuador. It's a fairly slim volume, so it's one you can easily take with you. And it has the commoner birds and mammals, reptiles, and amphibians in there. A fabulous little guide. So I hope what we've told you inspires you to go, and I hope that I can maybe see some of you this November on a wonderful trip.
Well, thank you, Peg, and thank you, Chris. We have a number of questions in the chat. The first one is from Ellen, and she wants to know what the function of the long wattle on the umbrella bird is, please.
Yep, it's part of its display. It enables it to make a long carrying hooting call, and it inflates it, so it makes it even extra long, which allows it to make that and just crazy sounding hooting call that you can hear in the fabulous rainforest.
Thank you. Cynthia wants to know, are there laundry facilities and how many lodges total are there at on this route? Peg, I counted them up. There are 7 lodges. Just 2 city lodges at the start and end, and then 5 in between.
And yes, laundry, these lodges, particularly Buenaventura, Casa Simpson, and Copalinga, it's like staying with family, and they're very happy to do your laundry. You just get it ready in the morning. They usually have it back to you. Sometimes they line dry it, so if it's rainy, it might take a little more time, but there is laundry available along the way. And like I said, we've particularly tried to make a 3-night stay at the key lodges so you don't feel rushed, even though we feature quite a few hotels.
Kit and Bruce would like to know if you have any idea if El Nino will affect the trip.
Probably not, although it may have some effects on the rainy season. But I think not. I think a lot of the effects we're going to see later in the year and into next year rather than this one. But it's mainly affecting sea temperatures, which can have an impact on the rain that you will get on, particularly on the western side of the Andes.
I would agree with that, Chris. I think we are going to see impacts in the Galapagos, and it's a cyclical thing, and things like marine iguana are really sensitive to temperature. There might be some effects on the seabirds off of Guayaquil, but I think in the interior, we are always prepared for rain in Ecuador. It's a hot house because of it, but there's always a lot of times with Ecuador, it'll rain at night and then you get a nice clear morning. It'll build up and then it rains again. So we'll just have to see. Right now, the weather is crazy enough. All those seasons that we learned so well are not applying as strictly as they used to. So it's a bit touch and go, but I don't expect a big washout.
And then a nice follow-up to that. Laura wants to know if temperatures vary throughout the different locations very much. I know you had mentioned needing a fleece in some of the lodges for the evening, but if you could speak to the different temperature variations, please.
Sure. Quito is very temperate, lovely climate, but cool in the evenings and mornings. Guayaquil would actually be hot in the arid forest. You would be dealing with temperatures where you're happy to go into that seafood air-conditioned restaurant for lunch. Casa Simpson is a higher elevation, so that will be cold in the morning and evening and just delightful during the day. So I would say when you're in the mountains, it would be really quite similar to Yellowstone, where your daytime temperatures are just fine, but morning and evening feel cool.
Okay, and Ari wants to know if you can see golden-headed quetzals.
Quetzals. No, I don't believe so. I don't think they reach into the area. If they have them, I think they're more in northern Ecuador.
They do have them on the northern route. That's something we see in the Mindo area and the Choco area, but the parts of Choco that we are at this trip are not high enough elevation. So that would be one on the northern route. And we have the January tour for the hummingbirds would be in a really good area to see that. And the shorter trip to the Choco would both be good for that species.
Virginia would like to know what we travel in. I assume that's a vehicle question.
We have a really comfortable little bus. If we happen to have a very small group, we use a van, but they're the big high top, like a Sprinter style. And then as soon as we have 8 or more, we have a coaster bus, which is not a vehicle sold in our country, and I wish it was. Several are made by Toyota, but there's other makers, but they seat about 15 people comfortably, of which we usually put our 10 passengers plus 2 guides in. So quite comfortable travel.
Okay. Tina says that the tour seems really great for photography. Are there good opportunities for photography at feeders?
I would say yes, always at feeders. There's great chance because you can get up close to often a wide range of species. Some people don't like pictures at feeders because it doesn't seem natural there, but you can always grab a bird that's sitting on a branch nearby waiting for its turn, I think, and get great photos. So there are opportunities, but we always make sure that photography doesn't hold the trip up in any way. So a lot of the time it's opportunistic. We can't wait for long periods to try and get that special shot for an individual, but we do our best for everyone.
And each of the lodge has extensive feeders. So someone with a camera and a real keen interest can always hold back, say not go on a walk and spend more time, because those natural epiphytes are there on branches by the feeders. So they're quite lovely. So you can kind of pace yourself depending on your interests and your abilities. Most of the walks are pretty moderate, but both at Buenaventura and Casa Simpson, there'll be at least one walk that's a little more go for it with some elevation. And that's a great time if you're not into that to just enjoy those feeders and your camera.
Thank you. Marilyn would like to know, is there a way to tell what level of physical rigor is required for the different tours? And I can speak to that a little bit, Marilyn. On each tour's page, there is a little designation about it's either a mostly perched level of physical activity, a birder's pace, which we say is no more than 4 miles a day at a birder's pace. And the other one is humming along, which is often that's descriptive of a trip that moves to multiple lodges pretty quickly throughout the tour, or a trip that has a lot of internal flights, like our Patagonia trip, or a trip that has higher elevations. Essentially, we will pull out some of the harder activities and note them on those landing pages if it's a humming along style tour. I think Peg and Chris could probably speak more to this tour specifically. But if you have questions about other tours, you can ask our travel planners.
Yeah,
I would say, you're going to get in and out of vehicles a lot. So you want to have the mobility that you're comfortable getting in and out of the vehicle. Most of the walks are maybe 1 to 2 miles at a fairly level grade. For instance, the Hokutoco Amphitta, you've got to go up a steep stretch to get onto a level stretch. So the local guides will help you. You can use a stick. But there is quite a bit of walking available, and as an alternative, there would be feeders. So I would say it's full field days. We like to see as much as possible. So, but with a 3-night stay at a lodge, if you've had it and you want to take an afternoon to rest and relax, you can do so. Do you want to add to that, Chris?
well, just to say that walking conditions can change very much. For example, if there's heavy rain, some paths might become slippery and therefore a little more difficult to negotiate. But we would always try and make sure that people are told if there's any changes in advance so they can make those decisions.
Ari would like to know what the altitude is. And there's a range.
Yeah, no, Quito, boy, I should have written this down, but Quito's above, right around 8,000 feet. Casa Simpson, I think you're sleeping around 9,000, but you'll be going out to sites that could be a little higher. Dos Torreos is, I don't know the height of the lodge. That Cajas would be your highest location. And then, of course, Loja is fairly low, but by low is probably about 3,000 feet. I think that would be a good one, Julie. Maybe we can send an email out with the various elevations of the lodges. I'm sorry, I did not look that up.
We can do that. We will send the recording of this Zoom out in a few days, and we will include the range of elevation in that. So Ari, that we will include the highest elevation in that when we send out the recording. And the rest are just thank yous. Thank yous from Pete and Elaine and Brenda. Well, thank you, Peg and Chris. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, just thanks for birds. Isn't it wonderful that we can balance our crazy life of politics and everything going on with a getaway to just renew our souls and be in nature? It's a wonderful occupation to help make this available for you. So please ask questions. We don't want you on the wrong trip. We're happy to answer those questions and get you on the right trip. But I would say there's no wrong in Ecuador. It's well worth the effort, and it's just such an amazing birding destination.
Yeah, it's a chance to escape to something real and really immerse yourself in it.
Well, thank you all very much. Have a great evening.
Okay.